We've got, just to introduce you again, the Federation of Unions of South Africa, that's FEDUSA's General Secretary, Rifta Ajam, President of the National Council of Trade Unions, NACTU, Patrick Mpekla, as well as COSATU First Deputy President, Mike Shingange. So again, thanks so much to the three of you for staying with us during this. Mike, we left in the middle of what you were saying. You were just talking to us more about those percentages and what you're saying that the workers are sacrificing. And that is exactly where we left off. You were about to move on to your next point. So if you want to pick it up there, Mike, let's just complete your answer into the question about, you know, the needs and the wants of the employees and the demands from the unions. 4,000 Rand increase across the board, 15,000 Rand sectoral minimum wage, and a 3,500 Rand housing allowance for all workers, and whether or not you believe this is possible.
No, we believe that's necessary and very reasonable, because that takes to an account of that which workers need in order for them to survive. We use our salaries to transport ourselves to work. We use our salaries to make sure that we get housing. We use our salaries to do the medical aid. So if you just concentrate on percentages and you're not looking at rents and cents of how much it costs, that's why this thing of the consumer price index gets lost in the translations. When now we say we want the consumer price index plus 4%, it looks like we're looking for a 7% increase. So that's the point I was making, that a worker who, after all these deductions I've talked about, will take maybe 4,000 or 5,000 home sometimes last year. The fact that they could not get a salary, it means that they're still taking 4,000 to 5,000 at home, but they are not able to buy or to afford the things they were affording last year. And that's what the politics of a consumer price index means. So last year, workers were expecting to get a 1% over and above the 4.2% of inflation. They didn't get that. So they took a 5% salary decrease. That's why when they demand a 4% over and above the consumer price index this year, actually, they are still demanding a only 1% increase from what they lost last year. But I want to also come to this thing that you say, President considered that in their reprioritization, they could not pay workers. To say it's very, very unfortunate that a government, when they do their reprioritizations, they will put workers at the bottom list of their priorities. Everything that the government wants to achieve here, whether it's to build the economy, whether it's to defeat COVID-19, you need workers to do that thing. But you put those workers at the bottom list of your priorities. So workers in this country now know that in the eyes of their government, they are actually not the priority. They prioritize every other thing else. But lastly, I want to say, Leanne, that we need to disabuse ourselves from listening to the argument of government of the economic meltdown that is caused by COVID. That's the reason why they cannot afford. The attitude of a government towards the public sector union started many years before the before the COVID-19. In fact, when government went to the PSCBC and proposed that they want to renege from Resolution 1 of 2018, there was no single case of COVID in this country. There was not a lockdown in this country. 3 years ago, in succession, when the Minister of Finance was doing the budget, you could hear that he was lying to the South African public, saying that there's too many workers that needs to be retrenched. There's too much money that workers in this country are getting. They want to save 60-something billions from the public wage bill. Whilst themselves, wherever they are not considering themselves as the public servants or actually getting money from the public payers. So the attitude of government towards workers did not start and brought about because of COVID. They are just using a COVID as an excuse, you know, so that they can get the public sympathy because we are now in the pandemic. Their workers were not going to get their salary increase last year, even if there was no COVID, because government has already made that point of a wage freeze for the next 4 years.
Yeah. All right, Pat, Let's get somewhere with a conversation, because I think everything we've said is what's out there. These have been the complaints from unions against government for a long time now. I mean, the whole of last year and prior to that, when we saw things starting to collapse. We're now at a deadlock. So, Pat, there's a lot of talk from different unions about waging war, about, you know, only wanting, obviously, to embark on illegal a protest action and a legal shutdown. But where are you? Because this is something that I imagine the nation is worried about when we hear things like bring the country to a standstill, when we are still trying to fight a pandemic and your members are key to the fight. Where are you? What is the next move?
Leanne, the only weapon left for the workers is to withdraw their labor. And we as NACTU believe that labor issues are community issues, and community issues are labor issues. So if you subject workers to abject poverty, then that is like making us glorified slaves. You see, and as glorified slaves, you're keeping us in debt. And the workers cannot allow that. We will not allow that. And the community understand that the very workers who are faced with rising cost of living, when they go and try to negotiate an increase, and you don't give increase to the workers, but the price of electricity, of food, transport is just going up and up, of medical aid, everyone is increasing, prices, but you're not giving the workers their increase. Now, in other words, you just keep their heads below the water. So we are just glorified slaves, and we cannot allow for that. So the workers now have to reclaim their power. And the only weapon left is to bring the country to a standstill.
When will this be happening? So we bring the country to a standstill, but when? Are there timelines on this? Is there? I know that there's still the whole idea of a conciliation process. Is there anything in the pipeline? Is that not even an option? Is the next step to bring the country to a standstill, and when?
No, not yet. We haven't just yet reached that stage.
Okay.
Like you are saying, there are still facilitations to try and find each other. But for the state as employer to table a 0% increase is a no. That is to a no. The state as employer should know that when they come to the table, they should bring something. Let's talk about something, because the workers are now, they are fed up, actually. The mandate from the workers is such that we're not going to allow for any tabling of a zero increase.
I mean, I know that Minister Senzo Mkhunu was even, in an unprecedented move, actually put out a call for suggestions as to how they can be helped as government, because they're just saying the Treasury has no money. Rifta, let me leave this with you. I know that we're running into the end of this interview. So if you could wrap this up for us. Firstly, I promised that I'd get an update from you on the 2018 NEDLAC wage agreement that's at the Constitutional Court. Where are we with this one? And, where to from here? Because we talk about talks. These talks don't seem to be working, conciliatory talks not working. So what do you do as well? Is it a total shutdown from your side as well that looks like it's going to happen?
Leanne, firstly, just a slight correction there. The talks that are underway, especially in terms of the Concord, has not been concluded via NEDLAC. That is, those separate entities where the majority of the COVID-19 discussions emanated from. The Concord discussions are squarely within the realm of the PSCBC, the bargaining chamber, where the parties have come together. So essentially, from FEDUSA's side, and I know that there has been consensus across the federations that everybody is moving in tandem in terms of standing together to take the matter forward. So essentially, the Concord action stems from the reneging on the 3-year wage agreement that I had referred to at the start of the interview. So we are moving forward. The date has been set down in terms of the judgment. And we are patiently waiting towards, consensus. And at the same time, we are hoping that collective wisdom will be applied to the process when that August judgment will be handed down. Essentially, Leanne, we are looking towards a process that will give public servants the reassurance, a process that will give South Africa the reassurance, South Africa as a member of the ILO, because essentially what government is doing now, going forth and signifying to the public that there is confidence, that there is funds available. And on the latter tail end of this process, government simply says there is no money because the money has been looted and stolen. So we cannot make workers the scapegoat in this instance. So yes, we are moving ahead with a Concord action, and we are not in any such way going to be pulling back. And the collective wisdom that we appeal to and the case law in terms of not only the South African context, but the global context must be put straight. Because essentially, if this turns the other way, it would mean an absolute erosion of every form of collective bargaining precept that the global perspective adheres to.
All right. Well, we leave it there. That's the end of the conversation. We were waiting. Unfortunately, that was going to happen. But I'm glad that we got to at least get a bit of a closing note from FEDUSA's General Secretary, Rifta Ajam, NACTU President Patrick Mpela, and COSATU First Deputy President Mike Shingange talking about the wage negotiations with government. All right. Let's get you a weather.